Welcome to the Regroup Hour, the podcast that's all about how we make and manage change by building a bedrock of self-care. Self-care that comes from self-awareness and self-compassion. This is a gentle hour-ish to take some time out for yourself, to simply be and see whatever this time brings. It truly is an opportunity to regroup. In 2015, I finally took the next step in stopping smoking, and I'm very pleased to say it was a very powerful and positive step to take. I went to see a wonderful woman called Juliet. She's a counsellor, a psychotherapist, a hypnotist. And over 90 minutes, she helped me explore my attitudes towards smoking and why one part of me thought it was a really fantastic idea to carry on as I was, even while other parts inside me variously judged me, criticised me, ridiculed me, desperately wanted me to stop. The process of going through that hypnosis was nothing short of life-changing. I'd been smoking on and off since I was 13. Both my parents smoked. And being honest, my adolescent self secretly still thought it was pretty cool. It sounds astonishing to say, but she did. And my child self equated the smell of tobacco with parental love, which also might sound a bit odd, but was true. And Juliet helped me stop berating myself while helping me see all the reasons why stopping was the obvious next step. During the hypnotherapy session, she also very generously not only left me with the phrase, "I don't smoke," she also wove in support around some other anxieties I was dealing with at the time, and I was really grateful to her for doing that. So I've got a personal sense of how hypnosis can be a really powerful tool in helping us make and manage change. And my guest today is an expert in this field. So Erika Flint is an award-winning hypnotist, 3 times best-selling author. She's a speaker on hypnosis and the self-actualized mind. And she's also a podcast host of a series called Hypnosis, etc. She is the founder of Cascade Hypnosis Center for training and services in Bellingham in Washington. So as you will hear, she's from across the water, and she's the second of my American guests in this season of the podcast. Before becoming a hypnotist, Erika designed software for the high-tech industry. And she worked in that field for over a decade until she eventually realised how interested she was in the most powerful computing device available. And of course, that's the human mind. So she now combines this analytical expertise along with hypnosis techniques. And she works with entrepreneurs largely to help them grow their business, but she also supports people in making change in their life. And she has a heartfelt approach. It's a trademark of her work. Her goal, I suppose, is to support people who want to become the full expression of who they are in every area of their life, starting with how they show up in their business. And today we're going to be talking about how we can explore and take control of the parts of our brain that inform the way we make decisions, maybe inform limiting thoughts, and maybe blocking us from achieving change that we want to effect. She's currently writing her 4th book on brainwave states and neuroplasticity, and that's also going to be something we'll talk about as well. And I'm particularly fascinated by how we can harness this plasticity of our mind in order to effect deep and lasting change. So I hope you love listening as much as I enjoyed speaking with Erika, and I'll see you on the other side. Wonderful. So I very much enjoyed those few minutes that we just had before we even started recording. And I wanted to begin, before we even delve into what hypnotherapy is or how it works or how it can support people, is just to get an understanding of some of your life story, really, and how you came to understanding how powerful an intervention hypnosis can be and the work that you do.
Right. Yeah, I mean, my story really comes from deep suffering, actually. I was a software engineer working in Silicon Valley. Great job, excellent company, lots of growth potential. I was doing really cool stuff in the world, but there was really something missing. And I got to this place where I think a lot of other folks have too. You get the job, the career, the spouse, the kids, the house, the car, like everything checked off that we're supposed to do. And at the end of that road, of course, is the happiness that we've all been promised. And I just wasn't happy. There was seriously something missing. I had chased, and followed the rules of the world, and it didn't bring me love and happiness. And I had really kind of strayed from my own spirituality because I had grown up Christian and kind of, didn't really enjoy that when I got a little bit older, and just didn't really have anything spiritual in my life. I ended up I ended up drinking too much and ended up in the hospital. I nearly killed myself, and I remember sitting there in the emergency room, with the stupid gowns on that barely cover your body. And my legs were swinging off the end of the gurney, and it was really embarrassing. My family was there. My parents were there. I'm like, and like over 40 years old, actually. No, over 30. But I had to make a decision in that moment if I'm going to live or not. Because it really got to that place where, I mean, here I am in the emergency room at the hospital, and I either needed a new way to be or I was going to kill myself with alcohol. And I really remember that moment. I remember sitting there, and it was quiet, and there were people talking, and you could hear the beeps, and my legs were swinging, and the stupid crinkly sound of that gown. And I'm like, I don't want to die like this. And so I hopped off the gurney, and in that moment, it was like the entire universe was behind me in that decision. And making a decision is so important, as you probably know, but making that decision, then I had the full force of the universe behind me. And in that moment, I felt like I could do anything. I felt alive again. And from then I started seeking. So I really started looking for something spiritual. And I eventually found hypnosis. So I'll just kind of pause there because I know that's a lot, and we can continue if you'd like on that story. Mm-hmm.
So the people who listen to this podcast regularly will know how strongly your story resonates with me. Just to honor that little enormous connection there, and that experience of making a decision, actively choosing to see, here's one path and here's another.
Yeah.
This one I kind of know where it ends. This one I haven't got a clue. I'm going to go down that one.
Yeah.
And that feeling of, yes, recognizing that I think one of the things I talk about quite a lot on the podcast is the tools that we use to distract ourselves. And we just talked about my own story of when I experienced hypnosis and stopped smoking. That was just one of my distractors. And my main one was overwork. And yes, had a similar experience in a hospital. Had got so ill through lack of self-care, really. So it's very powerful. And I think so often that that can mark such an incredible shift. Like, you have no idea of the potential of the changes that you can make. And so I am not surprised that my sense when I was looking into the work that you do, that purpose was a word that just resonated so strongly with me. And it really feels, you talk of the universe as well, it feels so strong. So I almost feel like I know the answer to this, but what drew you to wanting to work with others?
Yeah, I saved myself first with hypnosis and and I stopped drinking. And that really was a spiritual path. And I really got back on that spiritual path. And I realized when I got better, my entire world got better. Of course it did. But I needed and wanted to share this information with people. And it's really cool because, I was a software engineer working for one of the largest computing organizations in the world. And we're doing really cool stuff. We're doing cognitive computing, we're doing healthcare, we're doing all of this really cool computing stuff. And so when I realized that hypnosis really gives us the ability to ourselves reprogram our inner operating system, like I was blown away. I really felt like, this was such an aha moment for me. I'm like, I am in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. It couldn't be any better. Here I have all this software engineering background. I nearly kill myself. And now I want to use basically the words that we say in our head as our programming, the things that we're becoming aware of, and our feelings are programming too. We can change all of that. So it's really helping to program the most powerful computing device in existence. And we could do it ourselves. And so when I had that realization, I'm like, all of the suffering makes sense. All of this really, really low, all of that stuff, like to the depths of your suffering is elation on the other side. And so I was just blown away by how awesome this is. And now I get to go out, and this is why I started teaching, because once I started helping people with hypnosis, I was helping maybe 4 or 5 people a day at the most. And so I started teaching, and now we're helping, we've trained over a couple hundred people. So now, we're helping hundreds of people a day with the power of hypnosis. So it's a progression that's been really delightful.
Mm. And your own teachers presumably have been incredibly influential upon you. And how it's really interesting, I think, when you've gone through a learning process yourself and then you bring that learning into how you teach others.
Right. Yeah. So I take things from hypnosis teachers. Wayne Dyer is one of my favorite teachers. Lao Tzu is one of my favorite teachers. Buddha is one of my favorite teachers. Jesus Christ is one of my favorite teachers. So I take, stuff from all of that. And the cool thing about hypnosis is it gives us practical ways to shift our behavior and our thinking. It's very practical, right? There's an overlap with hypnosis and meditation. A lot of people ask about that. And meditation and hypnosis, we're highly focused, and the intention is you're in the present moment, right? But the reason I love hypnosis and prefer hypnosis usually is because we have a hypnotic suggestion that is the intention. And so it's easier for people to achieve, which makes it more practical, which means then they get to see results that very same day, usually, which then inspires them to stay with it. So it becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy as we continue working together.
Okay, that's beautiful. That idea of intention. Funnily enough, Erica, I ran a retreat on Saturday, which was all about intention setting for the coming season.
Wow.
And so, yes, there's something very, very appropriate and resonant about you raising that. And I'd love to hear a bit more about the use of intention. And I know from my own experience of when I was hypnotized that it was immediate. It absolutely, I had no sort of desire at all to smoke after.
I know, isn't that nice?
Oh my goodness.
That's what everybody wants, right? It's like you won't want to smoke. You won't want to eat those chips, right? I have a story about one of my clients. She came home from, she emailed me, was super excited because she said, Erika, I got home, I'm unloading my groceries, and I didn't even go down the chip aisle. Not only do I not have chips in the bag, but I didn't even think about it. It was pure freedom. She went to the grocery store, she came home, didn't think about all the foods she didn't want until she got there. And that's freedom, right? You didn't even want it. So it's not a push-pull. It's not a deprivation. We really get to change how you feel at the root.
So thank you for raising that as well, because I know that a large part of your expertise has been in and around supporting people with weight loss. And you've written books on it, etc. Yeah. And it's one of those areas that there's such tenderness around it. There's such delicacy actually around this whole issue. And one of the things that I'm very aware of is how weight can be an emotional, protective layer that we carry with us. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you use your obvious compassion. That's the thing. That's what I'm really loving as I'm listening to you, is feeling that compassion that you have, and how that helps inform that intention setting, and maybe something about the weight loss stuff as well. Anyway, there we go. Off we
Yeah, great, great. Intention setting. So one of the principles of the mind that is so important, and there's a lot of messages that I really want to get out there, but one of them is whatever we focus on grows. And so unfortunately, the way that the brain is organized is the brain is organized for negativity. And negativity bias to keep us safe, right? Let's notice all the danger in the world so that we are safe. Now the brain is oriented that way. So we kind of grow up that way, and we've all probably had an experience where maybe we're giving a presentation and everything goes well. We answer all the questions except for one. And when we get home, what's the one thing we remember? We don't remember the 29 questions we answered properly. We remember the one that we didn't, and we feel bad, right? And so that's biological. The cool thing is that we can operate with real-time evolution, meaning we can use our conscious mind to say, hey, I know that's the way my brain operates, so I'm going to focus on the positive. So with intention, this is truly biological. When you set an intention, you are seeding your reticular activating system, which is part of your brain that functions as a filter, right? We are, latest estimates, 40 billion bits of information coming into our brain at any one time. Not that I know how they measure that, but we can only be aware of a subset of that. And so if you allow the brain to go untended, it will notice all of the danger, and you will be paying attention to all of the danger, and you will be anxious, most likely. An elevated evolutionary way to be is recognize that that's the way that the brain operates, and use our smarter brain, our executive function, our prefrontal cortex to say, I know that's what you're doing, and I'm basically not going to do that anymore. So I'm going to pay attention to these things that I really want. That's intention setting. So when we set an intention, we actually set a landscape for our brain, an environment for our brain to kind of play out the next act, play out the next scene of our life. So intention setting is super, super powerful. But I don't think it's any more important than the compassion that you mentioned. I think that's what really causes the shift. It's actually, truly, completely, and totally loving somebody where they are at right in that moment. They don't have to make any changes at all. Zero. And when you can meet somebody right there and they truly feel seen, loved, heard, felt, belonging, just even for a moment, it changes everything.
Beautiful. There's the phrase perfect in our imperfections that is resonating with me there. And I think there's that, yes, that point around so often, I work in the field of change, but coming at it from a very compassionate stance like you. And one of the things that I see sometimes is around this, it's almost like this pressure to change. And I think it then comes from perhaps from a place of lack, where people are just feeling as though it's no longer their choice. It's an external factor that's driving shoulds, musts, wants. And I'm really interested in how hypnotism can also support that shift into a more self-compassionate stance, right, for people.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the ability for us to control our nervous system, because really what happens is in the moment we start to get nervous. And when we start to get nervous, blood rushes from our head, it goes to our large muscles, and we say and do things that we don't feel really comfortable about. And so, when we have these ideas like I should do this, I need to do this, first of all, I think that we can get those words out of our brain. If the words in our mind are our programming, be very selective with how you speak to yourself, right? So, lately, a couple of the word flips I've been using is, from should to and have to, need to get to or want to. And if I can't turn it into a get to or want to, I usually don't do it. I just don't do it. I just refuse. I am not going to do something that I truly cannot find value in, even if somebody else is asking me to do it, right? The other word flip that I've been enjoying lately is worry, from worry to wonder. And so every time I think, "Man, I'm so worried about that," then I wonder. I wonder, because it's a W, right? So it's kind of an easy flip. I wonder if there's something for me to do. I wonder. So we bring in curiosity, because curiosity is one of the best things that we can do when faced with potential anxiety. Hey, be curious about it. Don't freak out. Wonder. Use your computer brain. You're smart enough to figure it out when you stay in the moment, right? Miracles
Beautiful.
only happen, right? Miracles only happen when somebody's present. Seriously. Like every single miracle that's ever happened, a good friend of mine, Sarah Solstice, says this. Every single time that something amazing happens is because somebody was present, right?
And this word wonder as well is it has that beautiful sort of dual sense to it as well. So a wonder is an amazing thing as well as a state of curiosity.
Yes, it is.
My word flip, I also am really enjoying word flip as well. I might be borrowing that.
Yeah, let's do it. I was thinking of actually starting to write them down, so maybe we could come up with
Yes, come up with some. So
Yeah.
one of mine is from should to could.
Ooh.
I should have done that. I could have done that.
So then you get to decide for next time.
Exactly.
That's really good. That's really good.
And oh gosh, there's so much in this yes, in this place of how we adapt the way that we talk to ourselves. And so is this sort of part of a part of that neuroplasticity? I mean, that's how I see it, and you're an expert in this field, so this is wonderful for me. I feel like I'm sitting with a teacher as well, so let's just acknowledge that. That we, in this process of reframing and flipping the language that we're using, we are realigning our thought processes. And so it doesn't need to be in a classic sort of hypnotic state that this happens. We can do it all the time. Is that
all the time?
All the time. Okay.
All the time. Yeah. And it makes it fun because every day we can get better. And every day I'm watching myself talk and I'm watching my language. And, the way that we talk to ourselves in our mind, that's how we speak to people when we're under stress. Just keep that in mind. Because, I know a lot of folks who they get angry or they get upset or whatever it is, and they say something that they wish they wouldn't have said. I guarantee you they've said that to themselves in their own mind 100 times. They're calling themselves those names. They're saying that to themselves. And so when you get accustomed to saying that to yourself and you're under stress, it comes out. It really does. So when you're stressed, when you're upset, when you're angry, be gentle, be kind, be loving. The only way to find an answer to whatever the problem is again to be present. So you really can't even find a solution in that frustration, right?
And so how can using hypnosis supercharge that skill?
Yeah, it gives us the ability to be present. So hypnosis is all about focus and filtering. What are you focusing on? We have the most powerful, mind in existence, right? But it depends on what you're focusing it on. Right? We have the ability, and hypnotists are professional attention shifters. That's what we do. We are shifting attention from this to that, to this to that, and asking you questions about it to watch your conscious mind work, to help you understand where and why things are breaking down, because you're getting feelings or you're getting emotions that are out of control for you. And in that moment, you feel like you need to drink, smoke, eat, yell, swear, whatever it is. Right? So hypnosis, when you were practicing it, because most people have been practicing anxiety their whole life. They really have. In this hustle world, go, go, go. The only way to get ahead is to hustle, all of that. So we're constantly knee-jerk reaction, going, 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 going. And with hypnosis, it helps you to focus on what's important, filter out everything you don't need to be paying attention to so that you can be present and you can invite those miracles and the magic into your life. And people who do this know exactly what I'm talking about, right? When we're present, serendipitous moments, synchronicities, like perfect timing, things that you really can't plan, they all just happen when we show up and be present. And hypnosis allows us to do that because it gives us a practical way to become present.
Can you talk a little bit about what about that actual process, that practical way?
Sure. One of my favorite ways is to use something called the alpha sequence. And the alpha sequence brings us into an alpha brainwave state. And this was first talked about in a book by Maxwell Cade, I think his name was. And he developed a tool called the mind mirror, which is a neurofeedback device. And so, one of my favorite ways to help people enter into hypnosis or into an alpha brainwave state, they're separate, but some people kind of talk about them the same, is to use physiological techniques. And so when we use physiological techniques, it gives signals to our physical body that now is the time to relax. So it's not a thoughtful process per se, which makes it easier. So I'll give you the 4-step process right now. The first step is to close your eyes. Okay. When you close your eyes, you get rid of external stimuli. Our brain processes about 20% of the energy going on in our brain is visual. And so when you close your eyes, it kind of calms things down initially. The second thing to do is to slow down your breathing. So when we slow down our breathing, specifically have a long and slow exhalation, that engages the vagus nerve properly, and the vagus nerve sends a signal to your entire body that now is the time to relax. Okay. The third thing is to drop your jaw. Same thing, sends a signal to your vagus nerve, rest and digest signal. Okay. So when people, especially when people are really stressful, they often grind their teeth. Yeah, you do. Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Used to. It was, yes, it was
Yeah.
definitely
Mhm.
something that was part of my
Yeah, that's normal. Yeah, I'm
signage
not
of
surprised.
workaholism.
Right. And you probably have a supercomputer brain too. So you're probably pretty analytical and pretty smart. And so the brain is up there churning away trying to solve all these problems while you're sleeping, right? And then we grind our teeth. So the first thing, again, close your eyes, exhale really slowly, breathe slowly, gradually slow down your breathing, drop your jaw. And the fourth is relax the back of your tongue, which is such an interesting suggestion, right? But the truth is, there's something called classical conditioning, which I'm sure you're aware of, right? How you compare two things together. The initial or the original example is Dr. Ivan Pavlov, and he, trained dogs to salivate to the sound of a bell, right? But with classical conditioning, we can train ourselves to do very cool and very important things. With our brain, when you relax the back of your tongue, it disconnects part of your mind that's preparing to sleep, that's preparing to speak, right? And so I have clients imagine this in all different ways, right? I have some clients who like to pretend like they're tucking their tongue into bed, like it's time for bed, like they actually imagine their tongue just going to sleep. I have other people who imagine kind of cutting it, like it gets released. I have some people imagine that it's just like a big soft pillow. But the interesting thing is when you do it, you really don't really feel like speaking. And you can just kind of go to sleep and peacefully drift off.
Which is hilarious because as you were saying it, I was like, what I actually did just for it's always great on a podcast, isn't it? When there's action rather than spoken word. But actually, what I did was a little yogi clap to say, "Oh, I'm loving this." But so 100%, that's beautiful. That's a new piece of knowledge as well. So with my amazing analytical supercomputer of a brain,
Right.
that's really, because I'm very familiar with the idea of the exhalation to
Right.
activate parasympathetic, but that idea of the relaxing the tongue just to come into a place of calm and presence.
Yeah.
And so you sort of talked about that as being like the alpha, so that activates the alpha waves in the brain, is it? Or?
Alpha, yeah, it engages, it kind of puts your brain into more of a primarily alpha brainwave sequence. So brainwaves, our brain functions at different speeds, right? When we're asleep, I think we can all recognize our brain, like when we wake up, we might be a little foggy, we might be a little slow. And then at some point in the day, maybe we've had some coffee or we just went on a run or it's crisp and nice outside and we feel sharp and our brain is firing, right? That's a real experience. And our brain really does operate. I mean, this has been arbitrary. Scientists have identified delta is between zero point 0.5 and 4 hertz a second, so 4 cycles per second. And then theta is from 4 to 8, and alpha is from 8 to 12 or 13, depending on who you talk to. And then beta is above that, and gamma is usually considered above 30. But different information hangs out at these different brain wavelengths. And so you might have had an experience from going from an alpha to a theta brainwave state. We kind of lose our words. And so if you're ever sleeping or kind of waking up or kind of falling asleep and the words just feel like they're you just can't grasp them, like they're kind of floating away, your brain is probably moving into a theta brainwave state. Very imaginative and colorful and pictures.
And it's as I think of tucking a child into bed, and when they're sort of, and that's yes, that's a very resonant imagery actually, as they start sort of, their words get a bit tumbled and jumbled, and you can see them drifting into sleep.
Right. And so that information is very important. And that's information from what we would call as hypnotists the subconscious mind. It's expansive. It's connected, right? It's not linear like what the conscious mind thinks about. And so, for any of your listeners out there who are wondering, I have this problem or I have this thing, it's like we use our conscious mind all day long to solve our problems. We know that there's this other information out there because it shows up in our dreams, it shows up when we're under stress. And so with hypnosis, we get to directly access that information on purpose, and then we get to work with it. And that's why hypnosis seems so fast too, because we are kind of like going directly to the source. We're not trying to interpret something through a dream or through a journal, or like we're right there when someone is experiencing it and get to help them understand and comprehend what's going on.
I also have this very strong feeling in my body as I'm listening to you about this sense of trust and a willingness to kind of hand myself over, but without. But I know from my own experience of being hypnotized that I was still very much in control. So it's a really sort of fine balance, isn't it, between building that relationship, I suppose, with your therapist, with your hypnotist,
right,
and trusting yourself to hand over that experience, or bring that experience into the room, maybe is a better way of describing it.
And yeah, I mean, some of the things that clients have shared with me, I'm the only person they've ever told.
Yeah.
The things that are holding people in these kind of places of suffering or deep shame or despair, a lot of times are things that they're so ashamed about that they haven't even ever told anybody. Or maybe they have some sexual trauma or physical trauma or something like that, and they're just too ashamed to even talk about it, so they kind of lock it away, right? And what I've been noticing, or what I notice, is with clients, when you're able to just exist with them through them sharing that experience, I'm basically saying, I'm going to sit right here with you. I don't like it either. It's ugly. This should never, ever happen to anybody in the whole world, but I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to turn my eyes from it. I'm not going to say, stop talking. I'm not going to, none of that. I want, tell me, get it all kind of expressed. Right. And so when folks feel like you're willing to sit in the shame with them, or in that, and it doesn't need to be shameful, right? That's the whole social thing, but, they can get some real healing. But you're right. It does take some trust. The hypnotist, just to be really clear, the hypnotist has no control over the client. And I know that you were saying that, but I just want to be really clear, because it really is, clients can be vulnerable, which means they feel safe to share something they've never shared before. They feel like it's worth it to share it because they know there are results there. They feel like they want to share it because they're in this environment where they know they're going to get relief, right? So we really, as hypnotists, create a safe and loving environment where people know they're totally and completely loved no matter what, non-judgmental, completely. Like if there's any sort of that in there, the process just doesn't work, right? It just doesn't work. So yeah, there's a lot of trust.
And that whole idea of intention then resonates there as well, because there's this knowledge that and motivation, the motivation to change,
Right.
feels like it's really resonant. Um, I so we've sort of talked about how the process of hypnosis works, and we've talked about how we can also engage our own sort of neuroplasticity. And I just wonder whether are there any occasions where hypnosis sort of may not be the right intervention, or does it feel like something which is always available?
Yeah, I think hypnosis is always appropriate only because it's just so can be so broadly used. I mean, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, first of all. And it really is just kind of like our ability to focus and filter on what's important for us, right? We don't want to have knee-jerk reactions. We wish we could take those things back when we get really upset in that moment. And if we can stay calm or not anxious or stay present, then we get to live the life that we want to live for the most part, right?
How do you use it yourself, Erica?
I use it all the time, all the time. And so let me give you an example. The first thing that I do when I wake up in the morning is I take some deep breaths and I'm just grateful, just grateful to be alive. And I'm just really focused on what is my intention for the day. Okay. Now, I went through my own personal growth recently and realized I don't need to have a life purpose. And it was a big deal for me because I always thought I needed a life purpose. But what I realized recently is that my only purpose is to completely get out of the way so that God can work through me completely and totally. Right. So my only purpose is to be fully present at all times. That's it. And so I'm hypnotizing myself all day long to remember to stay present because I forget, right? Be present, be present. How can you be of service? How can you love this person? Hurt people hurt people. Anytime somebody's feeling bad, it's because they're hurting. We can always, 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 always take the high road, always, and we can always provide solutions, right? And so when we're present in that moment, it is the most valuable thing. And so when I'm brushing my teeth, I'm attempting to be present, right? When I am talking to my dog or my animals, I'm attempting to be present. One of the things that I've started doing very recently was like, what are you choosing now? What choice are you making now? Like I have hot water. I didn't go grab a Diet Coke or whatever. It's like, what am I doing right now? Because what I'm choosing right now, there's going to be more in my life. So everything I do helps me just stay present. And hypnosis with focus and filtering, I can feel it. So I'm doing it all day long.
I love that. I love the um, the truth that's coming through that it is an ever expanding, ever
Mhm.
ongoing journey.
Yeah.
And you know, the I think the people that I most enjoy um, learning from, speaking with, listening to, whatever it might be, being with, are the ones who recognize that it is an ever expanding, ongoing journey. There is
Yeah.
no da da, and I'm done.
How boring would that be? I
How
thought about this the
boring.
other day. I'm like, if we really get done, then you die. Like that's it. Because like there's more to do than there's more to do, right? So yeah.
Exactly. And
Hmm.
it is a constant process of remembering,
Right.
and that it's one of the things that I can hear what you were saying earlier about the similarity between meditation and hypnosis, and that the sort of art of meditation is really the process of going, oh, I'm thinking, and I'm
Mhm.
inviting myself to come back. Oh, I'm
Right.
thinking, and
Yep.
it's just that it's the noticing.
The awareness. Yep. It's always the key. Yep.
I'm also really thoughtful about. I've recently started a new morning practice myself, which I am now thinking feels really resonant with what you're talking about. So I meditate and I journal each morning,
Hmm.
and for the last few months I've been praying, not to a particular deity, and I don't know what else to call it, but it's prayer.
Hmm.
And it is essentially a series of intentions, a series of affirmations around what I am drawing in, but also what I am seeing now. So it is affirmations. But as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, I think that is essentially hypnosis.
Self-hypnosis.
It really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm also seeing it playing out.
Oh, so then it's happening.
Yeah. So one of them, I was talking about this on the retreat. One of them is I included a line recently around movement and around flexibility. And one of the things that I've started doing, and I did it before this call, is that before every single call, before talking to any client, I do some movement in my office, and I stretch, and I look to the four corners of the room, and I connect with that person that I'm going to be talking to, but I connect with them through my body. And I only realized when I was sharing this on the retreat that, oh, hang on a minute, that's what I wrote in my prayer, and that's how it manifested.
Oh my, that's how. Okay, and then you didn't even notice it.
I didn't even
kind
notice.
of like you didn't want to smoke anymore, right?
Yeah,
you don't
exactly.
Want to smoke and think about it. So this just happened. That's the magic of hypnosis. Yep, that's it. Yeah. And I'm super excited that you're mentioning this because my 4th book is coming out. Yes. It's called The Academy of Eternity, and it includes embodied hypnosis. It's exactly and precisely what you're saying. You were turning to the 4 corners. You were getting your unconscious mind, aka your physical body, involved in the process. Your physical body has tons of intelligence directly from source, embodied by you. And we can get at that intelligence, and we can release stress by movement. It moves those energies within us to try and create, right? And inspire us to do things. So that book is really cool combo of everything we've talked about here today, with dancing, music, hypnosis, brain entrainment. So that's coming out next month. Super excited about it. And I mentioned earlier, my co-host or my co-author, Sarah Solstice. That's why I mentioned her earlier. So she's the co-author of the book. Yeah.
So what I'm really loving is it's sort of literally music to my ears, is the breadth of modality, I suppose, for want of a better word. So this idea that it's about movement. It's about the words we say. It's about being present with our feelings. So it's the drawing together of all of the things that can be beneficial. When I did my training, the reason why I chose my training provider was because they had a mantra, which was "Beware the man of one book." And I just went, they're the ones.
Yeah.
Because all of this, it's what we can draw in from so many different sort of teachers and sources. And it's what really resonates with us, and everything that you're talking about feels so generous.
Lovely. Yeah. I mean, we have to move. We really do. Like, everything is there. We need to incorporate the full body. And so I think, I call this heaven state. So living in heaven's state, like heaven is here on earth when you notice it. When you set an intention and set your reticular activating system to see the birds outside and the sunshine and the raindrops and the rainbows, and anticipate an excellent call with your manager, and know that the best song is going to come on the radio when you're commuting into work, if you are, and anticipate and expect, just kind of like, instead of playing worst case scenario, play best case scenario with yourself. And just watch what happens. Seriously, that's what you're doing with your prayers in the morning, right? It's like a best case scenario.
You just mentioned about music on a radio. Yesterday, our son went off to start a training program away from home, and I was sitting. We were like helping him, just sort of get his last few things together. And I was sitting in the kitchen just as he was about to leave, and I thought, I wonder if Summertime is going to come on Spotify. And literally a moment later, I turned to my husband and I said, is that Summertime? And he said, yeah. And I
as each other in the Fresh Prince. Oh man. So see, those serendipitous moments help us to realize that miracles are all around us. And when you ask and look for those things, your life really can be one miracle to the next. And when you start noticing it, it kind of gets fed back into your reticular activating system. So you see more and more and more and more and more. And so your whole life feels that way. It's awesome.
That is awesome. How funny as well. And of course, not funny at all, Erika, that it should have happened the day before you and I speak.
Exactly. It's precisely, I mean, that's the whole point, right?
That's it. So I will share the title of your book with everybody, just in case people didn't catch it. But and so it's due out next month, and people can order it from
Amazon.
Wonderful.
It'll first come out on Amazon, and then it'll come out in print probably a couple months later. I do have other books on weight loss, as you mentioned. So if folks have questions on that, I don't know what you want to do with your readers, but I can, a free relaxation recording or a copy of my book. Just let me know what would be best for your readers, because I'm just here to serve and help people. And I'll tell you, when people get their food under control, everything in their life starts to come into control. My first 2 books are on weight loss. My 3rd book is How to Be a Hypnotist, like how hypnosis works. And this one, Academy of Eternity, is about self-actualization. How do we live in heaven state all the time, every day?
That your point around food, I think, is really wonderful as well, because so much of our sort of emotion, childhood experience, etc., can be tied up in it, and our sense of how we're loved, how we're perceived, how we love and perceive ourselves. That was also a big part of my own change journey. And for me, it's really interesting, actually. I'm now sort of, because I talk to clients a lot about things like the reticular activating system and how we can reprogram, but I'm really mindful of using this word hypnosis, actually, how that is really the process that is happening. And for me, it was a shift from I want to be thin to I want to be strong.
That's a good one. Like what's there with I want to be thin? How does that feel, right?
And also, who says what thin is?
Right.
I mean, it's the most ridiculous concept, because when I was thin, and I was, under 8 stone, I'm not sure what that is in sort of kilos, but really too underweight. I still thought I was overweight, still thought I had big boobs and a big bum.
Wow.
And actually I was just probably quite sexy, but had no idea.
Right.
It's well,
it is how we feel in our body, is what most people say. Right. So it's like, what did I eat yesterday? Like, I wake up in the morning and it's like I get to feel what I fueled myself with the day before. So
yeah, and that comes back to the whole act of self-compassion as well, doesn't it? And so we fuel ourselves with the things that we say, with the things that we think, with the things that we feel, as well as with the food that we take on. So
you said it earlier, right? I mean, it is embodied, right? So when we're little and we do something and we get a cookie, I mean, that's a very strong message. I did something and now my body feels like this. I mean, it's the same thing as classical conditioning with Dr. Ivan Pavlov. So those messages are really, really strong, and they're very deep, right? So a lot of times to resolve some of those things, whereas we're looking for true happiness, a lot of people feel a pit in their stomach. A lot of people that I work with that want to lose weight, big surprise, right? Well, guess what that pit is? It's a lack of self-love and compassion. It usually is. And once we resolve that in a variety of different ways, it's not just like love yourself more. That's ridiculous. You can't just say that to somebody. It doesn't work, right? But once we fill that hole, really, people don't feel the need, just like you with the cigarettes. They just kind of forget about eating until their stomach tells them.
Yeah, and this taps into all manner of addictive behaviors, and I think so. I'm really interested in the work of Gabor Mate, and how so many of us carry addictive behaviors with us, but we don't necessarily see it as that. And how this work can support all of us in moving forward in a way that feels much more beneficial, healthier,
Yeah.
in the broadest sense of that word. There are a couple of questions that I'd really love to ask you. One is, maybe you've already answered this actually in what you were saying about your life purpose, but as a core life lesson, what is it that you would like yourself as you move forward to remember?
It really truly is just to be present. Never make a decision when you're not feeling in state. If I'm not in heaven state, I don't want to make any decisions at all unless it's about my physical health. Seriously, if I can just remember that one thing, to be present, be here now, what's happening now, right? If I can remember that one thing, I'll lead the happiest life possible for the rest of my life, right? For sure.
And if you think of this time in your life as a chapter in your book of life, what would the chapter heading be?
Well, it would be eternity. And the reason is because, first of all, I'm writing a book called The Academy of Eternity. But the reason I'm writing a book called The Academy of Eternity is all about bliss and heaven. And heaven is on earth right now. And I'm coming to realize this, how powerful we are when we pay attention and we use the powers of our mind to focus on what we want, right? So what is important is enduring. What doesn't matter, what's false, is the material world that dissipates. So the only thing that I want to be paying attention to is what is enduring, and that's eternal. And so I'm going to focus on love, bliss, service, gratitude, grace, all of those things that last forever.
That feels like quite a powerful place to be.
It feels good. I have a lot of help. So many people, so many friends and supporters. I bet you do too. Or I bet you surround yourself with just amazing people. And sometimes I look around and I'm like, how did I do this? I have the coolest people in the world around me. Seriously, I'm just so grateful every day.
It's interesting. So we're recording this on the 8th of March, which is International Women's Day.
Cool.
And one of my reflections is how the women and the men I surround myself with fuel me. And in a way that where I am also able to be detached. And that it's a bit paradoxical because we are connected and yet able to remain detached. So you talk about the kind of Buddhist philosophy. And that feels like it might resonate with you too.
Yeah, that feels like total liberation to me.
Oh, lovely word.
Right. You have the freedom and physical, emotional, spiritual, financial, you have the freedom to go and do and be anything that you want. Right. And you can have desires and you can get inspired and you can really do it. But, if you're done with it, like if your heart and mind, oh, we figured that out, I'm not as interested in that anymore, then you move on. And that's what I think God and creation and divinity is all about. We see something, we make it more beautiful, we create, it's delightful, it's enjoyable, we have fun with our friends, and then, hey, what's next? Right.
So you've talked about the spiritual aspect of your life has threaded through our whole conversation, and I think my sensation is that that is also a kind of broad spectrum as well, that it feels like you're open to lots of different approaches.
Right. Yeah, I believe in everything. I don't know that I can actually know. So until God comes in person and shares this with me, I'm just going to operate on what I feel to be true and what I want to be true. And what I want to be true is that we're all here to not necessarily to like learn something. We're here to experience bliss. We're here to experience bliss. So what makes you happy? Go do more of that. And the more I do more of that, my business is thriving. My home life is happy. Like if I focus directly on my business and the hustle and the, oh, I need to do this, I should do that. What's everybody else doing? Oh, what's the latest marketing trends? Oh, if I focus on that, I don't get anywhere. The way that I get somewhere in my business and my life is by making music, staying in heaven state, dancing, and then all these other things, heaven makes itself. Like it's already operating. I just need to keep in flow and it
And
happens.
everything else falls into place.
Exactly.
So
And
there's
it's a,
a
yeah.
there was a line that you just said, which was, "I believe in everything."
Mm-hmm.
I think I might add that to my prayers.
Yeah.
What's so funny as well, Erika, is that when I journaled this morning, I almost want to go get my journal to read it to you. When I
Go get
journaled
it.
this
Yeah.
morning, yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
one
Go
second.
get it.
Hang on.
Yeah. I want to see it. Another serendipitous moment, probably.
So I wrote, "Does it matter if what I believe isn't true? In the grand scheme of things, perhaps not. In this moment, perhaps not. It matters more that what I believe harms no one and brings love and connection to my inner self, that I may love and connect more fully with and through my outer self."
So because of your beliefs, you're able to show up more fully and love even more. And that's why it's so valuable, I think, for us to be selective in our beliefs and whether they're true or not. They're true for me. And so I'm going to opt. That is our operating system. We are operating our entire life based on those values, right? So you get a different experience because you've seeded your life that way. Good job.
Beautiful. And I love, yes, in the circular nature of conversation, how we come back to where your career began in the tech industry.
Right.
And this whole idea of our beliefs are our operating system.
Yep.
It was really powerful.
Thank you. Yeah,
Wow, it's been wonderful to talk with you. I just wondered, is there one last thing? Is there anything that you'd really love to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I mean, I just again want to reiterate how important the present moment is. It really is, and I think everybody's heard that message. But I think the key piece, the thing that allows people to remain present truly is practicing calming down your nervous system. It is one of the most valuable tools. I think everybody in the world, if they knew how to calm down their nervous system, so when they would get stressed, anxious, angry, frustrated, that they actually don't do that and can stay present, and then they can make good decisions. If people learn how to do that, it will change your life. It will really change your life. So I recommend, I mean, you could get, my book, The Academy of Eternity. But I also, honey, I can give you a relaxation recording if you want for your listeners to just, we've been practicing anxiety. So let's start practicing relaxation 17 minutes a day, 17 minutes a day, right?
I would absolutely love that. And I'll share that with all the people on my mailing list as well, so that they can directly receive it. What a lovely, generous offer. Thank you, Erika. And
thanks for having me.
Oh, it's been an absolute joy. And considering that, yes, we almost didn't get to speak,
right?
But we were meant to.
We were having some virtual, like we were meeting in some other virtual place, but we figured it out. Our vibrations aligned and we figured it out. I'm not surprised at all.
I'm not surprised. What a joy.
Yeah, great talking with you, Henny.
Yeah, and you.
Thank you.
Well, that was a treat. Loved Erika, loved her knowledge, loved her passion for what she does, and the deep resonance of her belief system. I love the way she used that phrase, the operating system, and that's our beliefs. I may be borrowing that as well. There were a number of things she said that I think I may be borrowing. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you, obviously, to Erika for being such an inspiring guest. And if you'd like to work with her, I'll share all of the links in the show notes. And I'll also include her books that are available as well, and this wonderful offer that she made of the free self-hypnosis recording as well. So look out for that. And thank you to you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being present, to use that word. Thank you to Angus of Chango Music for his production and the intro and outro that you are about to hear. And I send you a hug and a wave.